Well, it finally came out, and I thought it would be about time for me to make a video on Victoria 3. I'll admit, I was tentatively looking forward to the game, and there were a number of things I was looking forward to. I wasn't really concerned with the warfare system changes. I thought that, of course, Paradox will do the economy well, and thought overall the game would be a good update of Victoria 2's antiquated systems. I mean, how could they go wrong? Victoria 2 is great. All you have to do is streamline some things, make the game more user friendly, and there you go, you have your game.
No way. We got you. Not a chance.
What a fool I was. I want to go over the three main aspects of the game: politics, the economy, and warfare. I'll start with what I like about the game, and I actually really like how politics seem to work in this game. Rather than in Victoria 2, where you get a handful of pre-selected parties for each nation with their own political policies outside of your control, in Victoria 3 you can literally build your own government. It's kind of like parliamentary majorities in real life, where a collection of smaller parties are able to get together and agree on certain things. Sometimes these interest groups form their own liberal, conservative, or socialist factions and complicate the decision making process. I really like this system. I think it is very dynamic and cool, which really fits the spirit of the game. It also makes civil wars incredibly fun. Rather than in Victoria 2, where every 30 years you'd have random rebels popping up to simulate a civil war in your country, in this game it is very dynamic. If you alienate and radicalize one political faction or another, they'll start a civil war with you. This is so cool. My only gripe is that if you fail the civil war, it's game over. In Vic 2, you could intentionally radicalize pops from a particular population and cause them to rise up, so you could get a radically different government. This is not the case in Victoria 3. Also, the wars are super easy to win as long as you build all your barracks in your capital province. Overall, the political system is really cool and a welcome addition to the game. One thing I can't give a glowing review on, however, is the economy. In Victoria 2, the game emphasizes individual agency above all else. In Victoria 2, your pops are not static, they are dynamic. They are practically characters all their own. They have their own political goals, aspirations, interests, investments, thoughts, opinions, needs, wants, and desires. And all of these are readily viewable on the pop screen. Curious why communist revolution is growing in your nation? You can go and check the pop screen to help determine why this is happening. This happens a lot if you conquer large swaths of Africa. The African people in the lands you conquer want to advocate for a party that gives them equal rights, and alongside some of their other political goals, they usually view communism as the best bet for this. Couple that with many of them being poor, unable to afford fundamental resources, and this only radicalized the pops further, causing them to want to rise up for better conditions. Now compare that to Victoria 3. There is no pop screen. I mean, you can physically look at pops, but as far as I can tell, there's no screen that'll actually tell you what they want or why there's discontent. There are two numbers on the top left-hand corner that represent people who are discontent or content with your rule. For the life of me, I can't figure out what this is supposed to mean really, or find out why people are mad at me. In Victoria 2, there is a one-to-one relationship between militancy and taxes. The more you tax, the higher the militancy. There is a direct relationship between the two. As far as I can discern, no such relationship exists in Victoria 3. It is impossible to have anything but a command economy, and there's no way for individual pops to build anything themselves. It is impossible to choose to tax certain groups more or less, and therefore influence the number of certain social groups in your nation like you could in Victoria 2. You have to manually upgrade every single factory to improve the production methods. Compare that to Victoria 2, where you just got modifiers that upgrade the factory for you. While you would think that improving your industry would make you money, your factories don't actually make you money. Your income comes from taxation, and while yes, you can increase your GDP, it acts as little more than an arbitrary number to soy jack at going up. In Victoria 2, you had to set up your factories once in the beginning, and then you could basically never touch them again. In Victoria 3, nearly the entire gameplay consists of you building more buildings to make the arbitrary green line go up. I mean, the fact that the majority of the actual gameplay in this game is clicking a green plus button to make your factories produce more or making more of them, it's ridiculous to me. Like, I cannot imagine who decided that they would rather make every single factory upgrade an individual decision by the player. And I'll admit, when I heard of the changes coming to Warfare, I didn't think it would be that bad, and I like some of the rationales behind it. Paradox makes war games, but this wasn't supposed to be a war game. There was supposed to be a game about societies and people changing in one of the most dynamic periods in human history. It is a noble goal to be sure, and as a person studying history, much more compelling than studying military history as a subject. No period in human history is free from conflict, and the Victorian era saw some of the greatest fundamental changes in warfare. Yes, in Victoria 2, the war system was a bit tedious and frustrating. At the beginning of the game, it's actually quite satisfying. Maneuvering troops in Napoleonic style is a lot of fun. In fact, they designed a whole game about it, EU4. But then, as the game drags on and changes, the nature of war changes. What starts out as a fun, satisfying engagement becomes tedious and boring, and the kill counts are horrific. It's almost like this game had a reason for existing, a message it was trying to give its audience, like a piece of art, and it actually communicated this message through the mechanics of the game. Even in just this small way, Victoria 2 is able to actually communicate to you how fundamentally different and much more brutal modern wars like World War I or World War II were from even just 100 years before. That is powerful. I really don't understand people who enjoy this game. Basically, from Victoria 2 to Victoria 3, you traded a very streamlined and non-intrusive building system that practically played itself and a cumbersome and complicated war system for a cumbersome and complicated building system and a war system that plays itself. I don't understand why they do this. It totally takes away the ability of your pops to have any autonomy or agency over their own affairs. It even takes away your ability as a player to have autonomy and agency. It's change for the sake of change that doesn't improve anything. In Victoria 2, the name of the game was Autarky. It was about ensuring that your nation had domestic production of all the fundamental goods, so that way by the end of the game, when the great wars roll around, you could fight and win against the other great powers. With the RGO system, there were a limited amount of goods on the world map. Not every province could produce sulfur, iron, wheat, or coal. In Victoria 3, an individual province can produce sulfur, iron, wheat, and coal all at once. I understand this is more realistic, but these games are fundamentally an abstraction of reality. It is much more interesting when the majority of the world's sulfur is produced in the Dutch colonial province of Java. It makes you ask so many strategic questions as a player. Should I try and sphere them? Should I try and conquer it? Should I try and sphere or conquer nations in South America for the same goal? There's actually strategy involved in a game about grand strategy. You had different decisions you could make and different ways to play the game to reach your goals. In Victoria 3, it honestly just feels like there's one optimal way to play the game, and that is to just constantly be building new buildings and factories. While in Victoria 2, you'd be regularly faced with crossroads and asked how you might proceed, challenging your strategic decision-making abilities. In Victoria 3, there's only one decision to make really. How can I make these buildings build faster? In Victoria 2, conquests had weight. They mattered an incredibly large amount because Infamy was a limited resource. Now, Infamy just doesn't matter, and the game has become little more than a glorified map painter. I remember on my channel I made a poll asking y'all what you thought a couple of days before the game was released, and half of you were traumatized by this guy's video where he plays as Brazil and destroys South America in like 50 years. I don't blame you guys for this. In conclusion, I don't really like Victoria 3. Maybe the game could improve after a decade or so when it has been pumped full of enough DLC, but something tells me those days may never come. If you want to make a game that will have a loyal fan base who will stick with it and buy content for it in the future, the core gameplay loop has to be fun. Personally, I just don't have fun playing Victoria 3. I didn't touch on all of the issues either, but the brain-dead diplomatic AI, the game lagging horribly in the late game, frequent crashes, inaccurate Africa, barracks which aren't even based on population at all, but rather income, and the horrible UI designed for consoles all plagued my experience. It is really quite sad when Victoria 2, a game made 12 years ago, actually suffers from fewer issues and bugs than Victoria 3, a game released in 2022. I have a lot of for Paradox. They have made some really fun games that I've enjoyed for quite a long time. But unfortunately, I really think they just missed the mark on this one. I'd recommend not buying this game. If you want a game like this, play Victoria 2. It'll be a much more rewarding, fun, and relatively bug free experience. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you in the next video.